afternoon, everyone. My name is Kian from Incheon Middle School.
And I'm Michuhol from Incheon Middle School.
In IEGEC book club, we have read two short stories, and the first one was A Clean Lighted Place by Hemingway, and the second one was The Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. We chose A Clean Lighted Place for our seminar, and our title is Depression and Anxiety for Words Shown in A Clean Lighted Place. And these are our contents, and we are going to first show why we chose this topic for seminar, and secondly, we thought it is important to understand the story for the next context, so we'll give a short analysis of A Clean Lighted Place. And Ernest Hemingway is really related with the war because he experienced lots of wars, and we are going to look over his life.
Then we're going to talk about mental and psychological narrative impact of war happening in modern society, and we'll present our conclusions.
When we first read Hemingway's story, A Clean Lighted Place, we learned lots about the nothingness of the life, and we thought that the most important impact that made Hemingway and the old man feel nothingness was the war. And we also wanted to learn about the relationship between the war, the Hemingway, and the old man. And we are also going to show you an impact how war affects human. A Clean Lighted Place was written after the World War I. When we see the context, there are soldiers who are out of the cafe walking around, and guards are monitoring the people who are late outside. And the old man is sitting in the cafe and he's having brandy, and the cafe represents opposite of nothingness, and its brightness and cleanness contrast to the gloomy and dark mood of the outside of cafe. A Clean Lighted Place cafe was the only place where old man can get rid of his depression and anxiety, and that's why the cafe was an important symbol in this story. Hemingway described cafe as very bright and soft and well-lighted place, while he described the outside scene of cafe as dark, gloomy, and scary. And there was also a soldier standing out of the cafe, and it made the scene more frightening. And we can see that Hemingway contrasts brightness and darkness. Then why did Hemingway describe the cafe as bright place and the outside as the dark place? I think maybe he wanted to emphasize that the cafe was the only place where Hemingway can find peace and relax. There are two waiters in the cafe, and one are young and the other one is old. They have really different attitude toward the old man. And the young waiter can't understand the old man because he haven't experienced the war before like the old man and the old waiter did. And the old waiter understands the old man's situation very well because he experienced the war in a similar age with the old man. And that's why he said there's nothing out there and that our lives have no greater purpose. He's saying about nothingness. They really have different reactions. The young waiter and the old waiter both met the old man, and they know about the man's story, but they really have different thoughts about the old man. The young waiter thinks that life is full of value and his time is really precious because he's satisfied with his life. And he's also unsympathetic to the loneliness and emptiness what the old man is suffering from because he haven't known about these emotions because he haven't experienced the war. And of course, he cannot comprehend nothingness, understand nothingness. By the way, the old waiter thinks that happiness is just a temporary illusion and life is full of nothingness. That's why he understands the old man's situation very well.
In this story, the old man lost everything because of the war, and there are nothing and no one left beside him. He feels that his life is nothing and there is no reason for him to continue his life. So he tried to commit suicide. However, one thing that is left for the old man is his human dignity. In order to maintain his dignity, he went to a clean, well-lighted cafe, which is a respectable place for him, and drank brandy until late night. The cafe is a place where people suffering from loneliness like the old man can spend their time with their dignity, and this is also why the old waiter is running the cafe. The scene that the old man drinks without spilling a single drop of brandy and not staggering even though he's drunk shows the readers that the old man still has his human dignity, and Hemingway is saying to us that even humans are facing nothingness of their lives. Human dignity is left until the end of their life.
Then let's look over to Hemingway's life. And Ernest Hemingway was born in 1899 in Illinois in USA, and when he went to the high school, he worked for the school newspaper and he primarily wrote about sports. After his graduation, he worked as a journalist in Kansas City Star for a month, and it influenced his writing style, such as simple and very direct. In 1918, the World War I occurred, and Hemingway volunteered as an ambulance driver for an Italian army during the time. Hemingway saw lots of people injured and killed by the war, and it was a big shock to him. Unfortunately, Hemingway was also hurt. He hurt his leg because of an airplane accident, and he went to the hospital in Milan. Hemingway experienced the other war in 1937. It was Spanish Civil War. Hemingway went as a reporter during this war, and these are the pictures of Hemingway during the war. He worked for the North American Newspaper Alliance. After World War I, Hemingway suffered from extreme depression and anxiety, and he could not forget these terrible scenes that he saw from the war, and he also couldn't sleep because of an insomnia. The author Noel said Hemingway fought with depression and mental illness after the World War I, and he also suffered from alcoholism, and his ability to write was gone at the time. And I also heard that Hemingway had a beer for breakfast in every single day. And according to his writing, Man at War, he says the man who went to the war lost illusion of immorality, and they get extreme depression from the war. Hemingway wrote lots of unforgettable writings after he overcame his hardship, and the first one was A Farewell to Arms, and this story is based on Hemingway's World War I experience. The main character of this book was Henry, and he was also an ambulance driver for an Italian army during the World War I. The second book was For Whom the Bell Tolls, and it tells us about the brutality of the Civil War, and this book is based on Hemingway's Spanish Civil War experience. And the last book, it is most well-known and popular, The Old Man and the Sea. This book is not really related with the Hemingway's war experience, but his emotions such as depression and anxiety are all based in this book. We can see that these three writings are all affected by the war. Unfortunately, Hemingway committed suicide in 1951, and he died at the time. He said life isn't hard to manage when you have nothing to lose. The old man in the story of Queen Violetta Place lost all of his things because of the war, and he showed how the life can be nothing, and the happiness and success that is shown to other people can be totally the illusion, and I think we shouldn't forget what Hemingway gave to us.
Hemingway and the old man got negative impacts because of the war, and this is not happening just in the novel or in the past. It is still happening in the modern society. PTSD is one of the examples happening today. It means a mental symptom happening after war, experiencing serious incidents such as war, torture, accidents, which makes people have constant fear and suffer from their memories. It gives negative impacts to one's daily life. In a previous study by WHO among 21 countries, those who witnessed violence or exposed to war suffered from PTSD the most in previous years, and Dr. Mark also reported that PTSD is a very severe mental disorder. And now I'll show you a video clip of an interview with Army minister who suffered from PTSD.
December 2004, within 21st of December 2004, first day when that's hard. I cannot imagine how they could be worse than that.
22 people under Ham's command killed by suicide bomber.
Specialist Robert Unruh took a gunshot wound to the torso. I was involved in medevaking him off the battlefield, and in a short period of time he died before my eyes.
Two generals, Carter Ham and Gary Patton, now taking the extraordinary step of speaking out about their emotional trauma from the Iraq War, hoping it will help other troubled soldiers. Ham says he's learned to cope with the memories of that suicide bomb attack, but it's been a tough road.
I was withdrawn. I wanted to still be there. I felt like that what I was doing was not important because I had soldiers who were killed. It's not a matter of letting go. They don't want to let go.
For Patton, a brigade commander, the loss of 69 of his men over a year-long tour of duty still wakes him up at night, believing he is again under attack.
Of course, there's no IEDs or rockets going off in my bedroom, but the brain has a funny way of remembering those things. And not only recreating the exact sound, but also the smell of the battlefield and the metallic taste you get in your mouth.
They both sought counseling, knowing the stigma may attach to mental health problems. Patton says learning to talk about the war helped him cope with depression, anger, and grief.
Frankly, I think I'm a better general because I got some help.
But the pain may never go away.
At the end of it all, that there were soldiers and civilians who were killed. That's my responsibility.
Barbara Starr, CNN, The Pentagon.
And now I'm going to give some examples of having negative impacts because of the war in modern society. The first one is the Afghanistan war. According to one study, 62% of their participants show they have suffered from at least 4 traumatic events. And among those participants, most of them had symptoms of depression and anxiety, and nearly half of them had PTSD. The second one is the Chechnya war. 2/3 of the respondents answered they do agree that wars affect in modern life as well, and they answered that several of them triggered a mental disturbance and feelings of being upset. Nearly all of them answered that their family members have difficulty controlling their emotions. The third example is Israel-Palestine conflict. A study by Gaza Community Mental Health Program among Palestine children revealed that only 2.5 of them had no mental symptoms, and 46 of their parents found their children suffering from nightmares, and they say that their children's behavior became more aggressive after the war happened. The fourth one is the Iraq War. It says that because of the war, the degree of food self-sufficiency has dropped to only 43% and their economic situation degenerated, so the burden of taxes for Iraq citizens increased, and they are having mental stress for sure. The last one is the Sri Lanka Civil War, which says except 6% of the respondents, all of them suffer from war stresses, and such as PTSD, anxiety disorder, major depression, alcohol and drug misuse, and functional disability. Hemingway wrote this novel after experiencing the Spanish Civil War. After experiencing the war, he couldn't forget the scene that he saw at the war and had trouble with despair and anxiety. His depression from war revealed in his literature, and the most famous one is a clean, well-lighted cafe. In this novel, old man always drinks brandy until late, and this symbolizes depression and anciency from war Hemingway experienced. Hemingway also emphasized nothingness of the old man. The old man lost everything, and the only thing that is left at last is his human dignity. So the old man tried to commit suicide. As you can see, war destroyed Hemingway's life completely, and also it causes other people's for severe depression and anciency. This is not the only case happening in the past. In modern society, people still get negative effects because of the war, like PTSD. People get constant fear and cannot forget the terrible scene they saw during the war. War's negative impact on people is very strong. Think of Hemingway, think of the old man, and think of every refugee suffering from PTSD. It is definite that war affects people's mental health negatively. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Baek-soo from Michuhol Middle School.
And I'm Moosui from Incheon Girls Middle School.
We have read two books, A Rose for Emily and A Clean and Lighted Place. And among them, we selected A Rose for Emily. And we decided to do a debate about the nature versus nurture in Emily's actions and context. So first of all, I will tell you the brief story of A Rose for Emily. The main character is the Emily who was noble. The century passed, and she standed on her right of noble, and she refused to be chained, like do not be a text. And one day, she fell in love with Homer, but Homer was a homosexual. Because she loved him too much, she decided to buy her Senate and decided to kill him. After she killed, she lived with the dead Homer until she died. And in my opinion, I think human nature is determined by human nurture is determined by nature. In a treatise of human nature, which written by Hume, the actual book was divided into three parts. I will use the second part of the book, which is about love and hate. In this book, it defines love as a strong feeling that are naturally based on their nature to reproduce and be together. Also, in psychology, they define biological approach and psychoanalysis as a nature. Biological approach are focused on the genetic explanation of behavior. On the other hand, psychoanalysis define love and the aggression that made from this feeling as the nature. And we can find this on the Emily's action that living with the dead Homer. Most people have experienced that fall in love. And Emily, she kills the Homer because she loves him so much. By following her nature, which is the feeling of love, she decided to kill Homer and try to own him. Although you might ask that why love and nature, how love and nature related, but the love is the feeling that everyone feels, and the love came from the inner of each people, which means that they are affected by nature more than nurture. We can find this on the book, and one of us lifted something from it, and moving forward, we saw a long strand of iron gray hair, which means that she stayed with the dead Homer, and also the body had apparently once lain in the attitude of an embrace, but now the long sleep that outlasts love, that conquers even the agreements of love, had coupled him, which means that on embrace, the attitude of an embrace means that Emily tried to hug the Homer, and that makes him to look like this. And the next theory is 성탄설 and 성악설. 성선설 is made from mentions which argue that all humans are virtuous as they born, and they need effort to stay virtuous through their whole lives. In contrast, in 성악설, which made from 설순, they argue that all humans have emotional desires, and when they born, and without education and effort, people become wise. We can find this on killing Homer with arsenic. When Emily bought arsenic, many villagers think that she would suicide by using it. But actually, she didn't suicide. She used it to kill Homer. This shows that the action she did is mainly decided by herself, not from others. And those decisions came from her nature. There are other choices that she could do, like whether not buy arsenic or find another male person that she want to live. But whether she choose or following the other people says, she decided to kill Homer by herself. We can find this on the quote that, so the next day, we all said she will kill herself, and we said it would be the best thing, but she didn't actually suicide, and that means she didn't follow the nurture. And what was the last we saw of Homer Baron and of Miss Emily for some time, which means that she killed Homer Baron and lived forever until she died.
Okay, so that was the part of the nature, and I will present my opinion about nurture. Before we start, let's look at this video clip for a second.
Here is your psyche.
And here is your beat. You are destined for.
Destined for what?
Our glorious rivalry was formed.
A place of talk difference between right and wrong.
Right, far, far.
By amazing intellect and knack for building objects of man.
So, Megamind crash-landed on Earth and was raised from the Metrocity prison. And he had learned the good and the bad, kind of reversely what we have learned it. Due to the environment, living with prisoners, he ends up noticing himself as a supervillain and ends up being one eventually. He might have been a good boy if he were raised like in the environment like Michuhol did. So here are some theories that will support the previous video and my opinion about the human character. First is 성모설학설, which is suggested by Sorgo. He said that human nature has neither virtue nor vice, as the water cannot be divided as east and west. He said the factor contributes to the human character is the nurturing and education after the birth. Apprentice of Sir Myung, a man named Hong Doja, was inspired by this theory and said nature can be good or bad. In other words, that means human is nor good or bad. And for the same vein, the theory of tabula rasa, suggested by J. Locke. This is about that human does not possess innate sense, but forms it through a posteriori, which means experience. That human mind is empty as a blank paper, and this is why his theory is also known as the blank paper theory. And finally, J. Dewey said that essence of human nature has no virtue nor vice. Through the interaction of the environment, human can be developed good or bad. So, here are some Emily's actions in the context. First, she refused to pay tax. Paying tax is a liability is a liability as a citizen of a country. Most people feel paying tax is a fully justified behavior. However, Miss Emily refused to pay tax because she was noble, and she thought a noble woman had no need to pay tax. And this noble stuff was originated from the generation of colonial settlers who made an exception of Emily's taxation. And that's why it was so the Emily's nobleness was accepted by the society back then, and that's why Emily is keeping that attitude. Also, she and her family showed extreme dignity. It might have, as we can see from these quotes, like she didn't ask them to sit. She just stood in the door and listened quietly until the spokesman came to a stumbling halt. And the Gearsons held themselves a little too high, and the high and mighty Gearsons. Also, we can't miss the part when Emily goes to the drugstore and demands the druggist and arsenic silently, without a word. Like this, she showed the proud and high attitude as a noble, typically by her. And I think being a noble woman is a learned and kind of forced behavior, especially by her father. Suspecting from the quote that Miss Emily, a slender figure in white in the background, her father a spraddled silhouette in the foreground, his back to her and clutching a horsewhip. So, human nature, I guess human character is like a seed. So they're all the same seeds. And the way how you grow it and nurture it determines the seed to bloom or not. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with your idea that the human character is like a seed, but the seed itself are different. The way how you grow is just a background of growing. For example, binocular twins are genetically different, but fraternal twins are genetically identical. And among them, most of the fraternal twins' characteristics are similar, but the binocular twins are different. This is the conclusion that the actual seed, which are nature, are different from each other and affected them how to grow. Also, the nobility is like a kind of those seeds. Noble is a social class that both related by society and also individual. And the Emily's action actually came from the mind that she is a noble. And that means that it is more related to nature, not the nurture.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the nobility, that nobleness is considered as a learned behavior. Yes, as we said, though humans made a status system, but that's not from the given from the God. It's kind of artificial. So, nobleness depends on the social background rather than the nature. For instance, from the tale Prince and the Beggar, they look same. They look exactly the same, but they were raised in totally different environments. So, accordingly, they possess a different character. So I think the background was the main factor that made a prince a prince. And I have a question to ask you. Homer being Emily's sweetheart, I think that's the total just a coincidence. Because, there were numerous candidates as her groom before Homer when her father was alive, and he rejected all of them, so that's why Emily is unmarried. But that's not the important part. But before Homer, among those candidates, there must have been a better man, better appearance, wealthier, and Emily must have felt love to them. Then why didn't she take action then? Why didn't she take action to conquer that love and break the barrier that her father made? Why did she started those love affairs after her father's death? Doesn't that mean Emily was afraid of the environment, her father? Then that leads to the conclusion that nurturing an environment is dominant than nature. What do you think?
Well, the reason why she didn't find the love is that maybe because of the father, she didn't realize the real feeling of love, and also the Homer. Maybe the Homer is one of the men she wants to live with.
Yeah, and we're gay. Okay.
Then I have another question for you, and there is the quote said that she did not ask them to sit, she just stood in the door and listened quietly until the spokesman came to stumbling halt. But isn't it actually her characteristic? Not just because of nurture. She get annoyed because the other people keep asking her to pay tax.
You know, actually you're right. She was annoyed because they kept on sending mails and they even came to her house. But I think human characteristic is both affected by nature and nurture. Because that annoying was, we could say it was originated from the nature, the scene, and the nurture, how the villagers, the attitudes of the villagers upon Emily. So, I'll conclude. The factors playing a role upon formation of human character, there is both nature and nurture. Both sides interact with one another and form typical individuals' characteristics. And as researching and analyzing this presentation, it was definitely really hard and challenging, but at the same time, we really had fun eagerly debating with questions like that. We had so many talks. The storyline and major events occurred in the book will take a long last in our memory, and it was a great experience to study about this literature in depth. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sumon Jo from Michuhol High School, and I'm second grader and major in French. As a member of Critical MCH Critical Readers Club, I took a role as a mentor for IEGEC Book Club with Kiyeon and Yoon-seo, based on the story Clean Real Life Place by Hemingway and A Rose for Emily by Faulkner. Actually, we try to understand the story, especially based on the social aspect, especially war and history, by recognizing that the authors get affected a lot by certain circumstances happening in society. And they generally show the good ability to understand that story, I guess. And for feedback for today's seminar, and I think they understood, they had good understanding of the story, and that it was very impressive that they was able to understand the concept of human dignity in old man's perspective. And it was great to hear about the Hemingway's life and how his experience actually affected his writing style or writings. And also, this was perfect, that they found a good connection between writing to an author and author to modern society, especially PTSD, which is one of the hottest issues happening in international society. And they generally shows good presentation skills, good eye contact, loud voice, clear pronunciations, and etc., especially in gestures. So it was my honor to be with them as a mentor, and what ability they have shown was impressive. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Oh Dong-hyun. I am a second grader in Michuhol Language High School, and I was a member of the IEGEC Book Club mentor as a member of our school club, the Critical Readers Club. I had an amazing chance to be a mentor with the students Oh Soo-in and Baek Seung-woo. We tried to focus on short stories, and the whole sessions were just timed with great thinkers, especially Hemingway, Faulkner, and the students themselves. We had really heated discussions about the content of the story, and we would sometimes go on further to discuss how it would play out in the modern society. We try to connect the story with the society and with our minds as well. For their seminar, they chose the topic, the nature versus nurture debate, and analyzing Emily's actions through it. This was a subject that I had personally learned here at Michuhol, and I thought it would be a very interesting topic to talk about. Deciding an action by the heart or the environment. That was essentially the main point of the debate and the topic they talked about. I try to act as a guide to help them understand better and to help them really connect with the characters themselves. We focus on the psychology and human mind and how the human mind got to where it had. About the presentation, their stances were perfect, I guess, and I really have nothing to criticize in their logic. But in their speaking styles, I think you could be a bit more attentive to your audience. Maybe some more eye contact, more gestures, that would help. So yeah, it was a very interesting journey, and I hope that I gained more as well as they did. Thank you.
구슬무쇠로 피고 스쳐 불어온